Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Oh my gosh, I gotta fix myself up here. Excuse me. Good morning, everyone. There she is. See if I can get her on here. Ooh. So we're just waiting for Kathie to hop on, and then we will get started. I'm even on time.
This is
Hello.
This is kind of like the weirdest thing. Okay, so this is our first live. It could just be you and me.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's
totally
good.
Cool with that.
It's actually Glennon Doyle was live and I was watching it.
Oh, you had to hop off of, well, we can understand if people are watching Glennon right now because.
Oh gosh. I know, I want to get the book one drop. It looks so good. I only watched a moment of the conversation. And Abby came in and she was so cute and she told her she had to be good. Like, you can watch, but you have to be good. I was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, let's do because this is a training ground for our podcast. Eventually, we will have a podcast when we can be together. And
yes, we have our training wheels on.
Yes. So we have a theme song. Well,
of course
a theme jingle. Is it a theme song?
I'd say so.
Yeah. It's 18 seconds. And a really good friend of mine took what was in my head and put it to music. So this is our intro. Tune in. Okay, here it goes. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I gotta start my watch.
So many things going on. So, welcome. And we are live. Kathie. So we're Kathie and Rayna, and we are a mother-daughter duo. Had a little bit of trouble with that word earlier, and we're just gonna share kind of the behind-the-scenes access to our conversations that we have wherever they lead us, because they lead us many places.
We got no sense of direction, and I hope you have a coffee. Or
I do.
Good. Or for those of you who will be watching, I hope you have a glass of wine, maybe if it's later in the day. No judgment here. This is my second cup, and
mine too.
Brenè and I have talked a little bit, just a prelim. We didn't actually talk about what we were going to talk about, just what the topic was, because we like to just shoot from the hip. But I can get really ramped up when I have too much coffee. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So I'm trying to be like zen. So today our topic is like about hiding our feelings, like hiding our feelings in turn, which creates us to make ourselves fit in. Like, yeah, it's just that weird thing. So hiding your feelings in turn, making yourself fit in. Discuss.
Yeah, discuss amongst yourselves, which means us.
Like, when does it start?
Yeah, and I mean, basically, this came up because yesterday, you know, we were supposed to have a chat like this, just the two of us.
Prelim.
And I was like, you know what? Like, I can't today. My oldest came home and he was, you know, a bit out of sorts, feeling some feels. And it just got me thinking, and I'm always thinking about this stuff, probably overthinking, but it got me thinking about, you know, how challenging it can be for children to navigate that world inside schools, inside community, with their peers, and how we are taught at such a young age to put masks on and to not actually say what we're thinking, to go with the crowd and just not make waves, just fit in so you can, you know, survive that period of time. And it got me thinking about how I think there's just like a lot of fear in our culture about actually being who we inherently are.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad. I wish that it was one of those things where you just like flip a switch and people are like, okay, forget that noise. Like, let's just be ourselves and like try this out for a
Be
while.
authentically you.
Yeah. And even now, I think there is a big turn towards going that way. We've come so far in now we openly talk about mental health and about self-care and about, you know, being authentic and being who you are. And one of our favorite speakers and authors and researchers, Brenè Brown, has groundbreaking research, like actual studies done, having
Mm-hmm.
conversations with thousands and thousands of people to get this data that show us that connection and vulnerability and belonging are like the anchors to survival for us as human beings. Like, just
Right.
if you strip it down to
Yeah,
nothing, that's
totally.
what it is.
And I actually have a quote from Brenè.
Yes, you
And
do.
this is what it says. It says, because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self acceptance. And, uh, I think about this. I mean, this conversation, like when you talked about what happened with your oldest, I was like, man, that's what we should talk about tomorrow. Is like,
Yeah.
when did we learn to stuff our feelings down? And, I think about it and it's like, okay, at this age, I'm almost 60, and my give a factor is at an all-time low. And that doesn't mean like about myself. Like, it's like, you know what? I'm going to be who I am. And whether or not it pleases another person, that person's not obviously supposed to be in my little community, and they can carry on. But I know but I have to. I'm still unlearning all the things and the
Yeah.
coping mechanisms that I learned to fit in. Like, it's like, how the flip do you shut that down? And with children, we as their parents and society are like, if they're upset about something, like the 3-year-old is my favorite, because their feelings, they just put them out there, their demands, this is who I am. And you can think and go, that's not like, that's kind of I don't know if I like that person. And you're like, wow, she's demanding, or wow, he really thinks he deserves everything. And they're just so themselves. And we as their parents, society, or whatever, go, no, 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 you know what, you can't behave like that. Oh, you need
Yeah.
to be this way, you need to
It's
be that way.
inappropriate for
um,
this
and they
situation.
learn that they can't be a certain way. And another author that we really, really like is Glennon Doyle. And I'm just going to read something from her book, and then you can take it away, Rayna. So it says, because I was trying to figure out, like, when do we learn to not be ourselves? And there's so many things about how little boys are supposed to be and little girls are supposed to be by
Mm-hmm.
societal terms. And the reason we as parents, and I'm going to say parents because that's what I am, is we hear our children and we empathize, but we don't want them to hurt. We don't want them to feel bad. So they're there. We give them coping mechanisms to shove that feeling down. Where I've learned as an adult, an old lady, that if I could have just let you feel your feelings, you wouldn't be carrying this crap 20, 30 years later.
Yeah.
But anyway, so 10 is when the world sat me down and told me to be quiet and pointed me toward my cages. These are feelings you're allowed to express. This is how a woman should act. This is the body you must strive for. These are the things you will believe. These are the people you can love. Those are the people you should fear. This is the kind of life you are supposed to want. Make yourself fit. You'll be uncomfortable at first, but don't worry. Eventually, you'll forget you're caged. Soon, this will just feel like life.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think, you know, at 10, there's probably that awareness there, but it starts way before that.
Yes.
And, you know, just to get a little sciencey on you, Like in children's brain development, you know, we were talking about this earlier, kids having temper tantrums in inappropriate places or meltdowns or emotional outbursts.
Mhm.
Like their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for, you know,
You're going all Dr. Jody on me right now.
but just listen, it's interesting and it
Yeah.
matters because so many we were talking about how we have these expectations of our children to act like these little adults,
Yeah.
but their brain doesn't have the same centers in it yet for reasoning, for, you know, planning, for memory, for, you know, putting pieces of the puzzle together and understanding proper behavior. They're full on running on emotion.
Yeah.
That's what's developing in them all the way. Like their prefrontal cortex doesn't even start to have a growth spurt between 5 and 8. And we have these expectations of our kids, and
Right.
pairing that with what you said earlier about, you know, protecting our children from feeling the feelings that we label as good or bad.
Yeah.
So, bad feelings, anything to do with discomfort, especially if it makes both parties uncomfortable. If it makes the parent
Yeah.
uncomfortable and it makes the child uncomfortable, and you're sitting in these uncomfortable feelings and they're labeled as bad, you want to get those out of the way as soon as possible, because we're taught that we're supposed to be sustaining happiness long term without any bumps in the road, or we're doing something wrong. And that's just so unrealistic, and it sets us all up to fail. It sets us all up to really root ourselves in that seed of unworthiness that gets planted at an early age, that I feel this way, but society's telling me it's this way, so I must be wrong. And
Yeah.
we get that feedback, and we're smart creatures, so we learn, we adapt, we mask, we hide, and then we become what we think we're supposed to be, and then we get so tired. So when you get to be a certain age, you start peeling back all these different things you put on, which leads me to my quote, because in
Come
my
on.
training, I got to watch this incredible documentary that I think for a lot of people who might watch it and go, oh God, this is so woo-woo and out there and crazy, but it's really not if you listen and are open. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ram Dass, but he was a Harvard professor that was
Oh,
studying
yes.
psychedelics, right? So there's that whole thing. And then he went on this incredible journey of, you know, trying to become enlightened. And he has the most warm humor about it, and isn't the egotistical spiritual guru that you would picture.
Right.
And the way that he explained this just really stuck with me. He said, in most of our human relationships, we spend much of our time reassuring each other that our costumes of identity are on straight. And like, if that, like, that just simplifies it to like something everybody I think can relate to, is, you know, all of our relationships, whether they're friendships, their family, their loves, all of it, we just want to make sure we're wearing our costumes of identity right. And you see that now in the world with how we're talking about now gender being a social construct, and boys and girls being told that they're this way, and so many of us not feeling we fit that box.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the conversations have started, and the people are starting to really, I think, like we said, get so tired
Oh,
of.
totally. When you were talking, I was thinking about like that costume. I love that analogy. That's like, and we will put our quotes up. We'll
Yeah.
we'll have little boxes and put those up for everybody. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think about yeah, just like being uncomfortable, and mostly like with a child, when a child is having a temper tantrum. And I can remember being a mother of three little girls, being shopping, and having someone completely lose it. And I
Yeah.
actually remember walking through, it was Christmas time, and pulling you guys out of, like, dragging. I probably was carrying two and dragging one out of the mall. And I was like livid. Because I couldn't control the situation. And I'm
Right. And you
like,
were probably right up there in fight or flight too.
I probably wasn't saying much that was good,
Yeah.
but we were getting out of there. We were getting the heck out of Dodge. And this man, and I think he was Santa, looked at me and he said, "Oh, Merry Christmas." And I'm like, you, like, you don't even know, pal. And I was having a full blown, as well as one of my children, full blown temper tantrum, because I was like, why are you listening to me? And in that moment, like, now when I'm thinking about it, it was like, that child, which wasn't in a place where I could just go, what's going on, baby? Like, what do you need?
Yeah.
It was like, you can't be like this right here because.
Shut it down.
The man was saying to me, you can't be like this.
The
This is
big
Christmas
Santa
time.
is uncomfortable.
So we need, like, children and adults just need to be heard.
Yeah.
And in that, like, because, like, you think that feeling you're having, and I mean, I don't know what happened with your oldest yesterday, but you made time and you sat and you listened to him. And I think that in that, what you did was you gave him safety, you gave him peace. And in that, you didn't have all the solutions. It was just you were being the heart with ears.
Yeah.
And you were listening to him and you were allowing him to maneuver through his feelings, which in turn I think gives him strength to be able to deal with them.
Yeah.
Is it going to be perfect? Is he going to run into it again? 100%. And I think, like, we as people need to listen to one another and actually not have a response forming in our head. Listen to the conversation. I might not agree with you. Like, we come at this like, I'm your mom, you're my daughter, we are really good friends. Yet our journey is very different. We have a lot of similarities, but our faith walk is different. I'm a full-blown God-fearing woman. You're more universe. We're different. We come at it, but I love to hear your perspective. I always learn something from you. Just because we might have a different thought process on the great beyond, the one, whatever it is, I'm okay. Like, I want to hear what you have to say. Your perspective matters to me because I learn.
Yeah.
I don't have to change you.
No.
I have to fight for my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, we were never taught how to just hold space. And I know that term gets thrown around so much these days, like, oh, I'm holding space for you, or, you know, especially in the spiritual community of love and light and all the rest. And, you know, I mean, no disrespect, but a lot of the times people coin the phrases and they know the words and they know the terms and they know how to sound a certain way. And again, it's just another mask. But we have never really learned and how to sit and hold space. And I talked to my husband about this a ton, and I think that it's ingrained in men more so than women to be a fixer. You got to just fix the problem. You find a solution, you fix it. And Jay and I have been together for 18 years, and I know. And we still have to have the conversation when I tell him my deepest, darkest, my feelings, how even like the dark feelings I have, he gets so uncomfortable, of course, and immediately he comes up with this game plan for me because he just wants to fix it for me. And that's a beautiful thing. That just shows you his heart, and I love him for it. And every time I end up turning to him and saying, you don't need to fix this. I just need you to sit with me in this. And the same thing happened with Mason, even for me, when I'm telling Jay, being all wise and saying, like, I don't need you to fix this. Just sit in the suck with me in this moment and
Yeah.
just be there for me. With Mason, when he was telling me what was going on with him, I felt my chest tighten, my palms get sweaty.
Cool.
I was so uncomfortable, and all I wanted to do was take that away from him, take that
Oh,
pain away from him,
of
and just
course.
fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, I consciously had to stop myself from doing that and just allow him to really feel bad about it and have a safe space to feel bad about it without me saying, like, no, don't, like, stop crying. Don't do that. Just think about something else. Here, have a cookie. Like, whatever it is.
What, Rayna? What? Isn't that okay?
Whatever it is.
That was my child rearing. That
You
is,
know what?
I mean, peanut butter cookies.
I think it's a lot of people's, and I find myself doing that to my kids too. I'm not perfect. It's just recognizing that, right? And so, yeah, this whole situation, and I'm definitely working on it, and I'm not awesome at it. I don't like being uncomfortable. I
No.
don't like sitting with my feelings.
Well,
I'm a
and
runner, man.
I think in that, like as children,
Not physically a runner, but I avoid running at all
yeah,
costs.
you run to or you run away from, and I like the fight or flight. But I remember,
Physically.
like you think about, we teach children as parents, Enneagram 7 shifts gears to avoid pain. I'm a 2 and a 3. What are you, Rayna?
You know what? Again, I have such a hard time with it because I don't like being labeled as something. So I resist it. I won't take the test.
Whatever. Okay, so as parents, or what as a parent, what I would do is I use the coping mechanisms that I had learned to deal with pain, with hurt, with frustration, and uncomfortableness. I use those to calm my children. I mean, I'm a great baker. I make a good cookie. And, it was like, here, this will bring you happiness. Instead of, and not that I didn't listen to you, not that I didn't hug you, but I didn't have the tools. And I think the really important thing that we have to do with our children in order to create, have them, not create, we're not creating, we already created them, but in order to give them the tools to deal with life and the pain and the ups and downs of it, is just to sit and actually listen to them. Because in that, we're giving them the ability to, how we say to men, like, just listen to me, you don't have to fix it. It's you're talking it out. Now you can have a conversation. You can energy. You can have that conversation, and then the other person can say, okay, do you want my 2 cents? And as a parent, you're going to give your 2 cents. Like, you can't just sit back and not say anything. You want to engage in and you want to give them the wisdom that you've learned. But you don't want to create a coping mechanism to not deal with the feelings, because there's a generation of us that were taught at a very young age to not deal with them, to shove it down. And I've been in therapy learning about that. Like,
well, and one ping, I had a ping.
Go.
So one thing that I've been thinking a lot about with my own kids, in, thinking so much about, I always envision like this cord where we're plugged into our true self, our center, who we are, our intuition, our inner knowing, that wisdom we do have. And that cord kind of gets pulled apart or unravels or frays or completely disconnects. Yeah. And we seek outside of ourselves for everyone else to tell us what to do, because one, that trust is broken, or there's just not a good enough connection and we don't know, or we've been through so much trauma, this, that, and the other thing, that we have so much self-doubt and we just don't trust ourselves. That
100%.
In order to build that, sometimes I wonder, when we sit with our kids, and I'm still a pretty new parent. I'm on year 9 with my oldest, and I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. Um, but if we sit with them and before offering our 2 cents after listening, what if we ask, what do you think
Mm-hmm.
you should do? What do you think? What do you feel is the right thing for you? And even if it's not what we would choose, can we maybe allow, within reason,
Mm-hmm.
obviously,
Of course.
as long as no harm, like all this stuff, like
Yeah.
within reason, can we allow for them to tap into that part of themselves? Because I, as cheesy as it sounds, I really do believe in every thing that I've done and all the trainings and all the different things that I've searched through and done. It always, like, your intuition is your superpower. It will not steer you wrong.
Right.
Even if something bad happens, even if it feels like a mistake or a failure, that's what you signed up for in this life. That's your lesson. That's your curriculum. That's what you need to learn.
So good.
And we get, it's almost just like we forget ourselves. We forget ourselves as an option to be like,
Because,
wait a minute, I can ask myself.
yeah.
I can trust that message coming through in my gut that tells me this is the right choice for me. Even if my parents or my whoever.
Husband, whatever, friend. I know it's interesting because I just had that conversation with your dad yesterday. I was like, we actually had a really good conversation. And he said, wait, this conversation was scheduled for tomorrow. And I'm like, well, we ended up being in the vehicle. So we're
Yeah.
going to have this conversation. And it was actually really, really good. And your father has been a man who used to try to fix my issues. And he learned, he's the one who brought it to my attention that he really wanted to listen without a formulated answer, a solution. He learned after a long time. But anyway, I can't even really remember what the topic was, but I was saying it was about doing something. And I'm a doer and I like to be involved. But I said, I still don't trust myself. And I'm going to be 60
Yeah.
because I have run fitting in and doing all the things that make sure that everyone else is okay and that everyone else is happy and the peace is kept, that I'm like, any feeling that I had, well, this isn't right. Like, I shouldn't be doing this, but okay, it's going to make everyone else happy. I
Yeah.
shoved it down. So right now, like I said to you, I'm trying to unlearn all the things I learned to fit. And
Me
that's going
too.
to take time. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
just really want to teach your children, please don't do what I did. And, you know, we could go on forever about this topic, and it is so relevant. But I think that the more a child feels like heard, the better they become at hearing, like at
Yeah.
hearing other people and understanding and making sense of their own feelings and just being able to cope and not have to do something to shove it down. And I'm so grateful for many people in my life. And number one, I want to say to you, thank you so much, because we're going to get into, before we end this, um, I went and took the grief recovery method because a few people had mentioned it to me, but you were doing it, and I've actually become an advanced grief recovery specialist because it changed my life. Um, but in that, I just, you said to me, Mom, this was like last year or maybe the year before, you sat and we've always had these deep conversations. You're like, Mom, what about your inner child? And I looked at you and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I was like this because
Mm-hmm.
I was so,
I'm so uncomfortable.
I was so boxed in to, I'm a very emotional person, but never knew how to deal with my feelings. And I'm still doing that. And I looked at you and I'm like, girl, my inner child is dead. And you're like, no, she's not.
Yeah.
Mom, she's not. And I'm like, okay. So I'm learning to appreciate her and think, oh my gosh, that little girl, you know, whatever, she's part of who I am. And she's had to put up with a lot. And it was just an interesting perspective because you, being a young woman who is very much on a path of learning and discovering and just broadening your knowledge of the world and people and feelings and just the whys. Well, you've given me the freedom to do the same thing. And I'm enjoying this journey. So I just want to thank you. And I'm like, we're gonna leave it there. We're gonna leave it there, but we're also gonna say, what cute little kimono are you wearing? You're
Oh
wearing something.
yes. So, oh, I don't
We
know.
want to do shout outs to little
I don't
businesses in our
know.
community.
This little thing, this little kimono, I'm the worst giveaway winner ever. But there is a incredible, beautiful little boutique in Sherwood Park who
Yes.
has the most amazing, unique, beautiful clothing and accessories and all the things. Real Spirit Boutique in Sherwood Park. I won this little
Yeah.
kimono and I love it. But I mean, pandemic, COVID, being in quarantine, I really don't look like this a lot of the time.
You
And
don't
so
dress up.
I didn't dress up and I wanted to make sure I wore it today because it's the most comfortable thing. It's one of my favorite colors. I love it. So I wanted to mention it today that that little boutique exists in Sherwood Park, and they are wonderful there. And I love
Yeah,
this. So.
and we definitely, I love them. I've been shopping there for years. And Billy is great.
She's so great.
Definitely, there's a boho kind of vibe to it, but there's
Mm-hmm.
also like business, and it's just really beautiful, unique pieces, like you said, and varying price points. She always has incredible sales. Her and Kathie are like, they're just so helpful. It's just the cutest, sweetest, warmest place to go, and you're gonna find something that you love. So make sure that you have money in your bank account when you go shopping there, because you're gonna leave with something.
Yes.
And these aren't paid. Why would these be?
You
We're
didn't even
so
know we were
big.
doing.
We're so big that these are not. No, we're just gonna talk about what we love because it's super important. And we really love our community
We
and
do.
love conversations. And we will be doing this again. Hopefully you enjoyed this. And I will play us out. Oh yes, yes, yes.
How
Well,
could I not?
I know. Just a second. That's not
This
fair.
is the way.
I was.
What?
Oh, I was being. I was being like. I was being really professional. Okay, so I'm going to play us out. But we will post our quotes, and if you have any questions, DM us. We
DMs,
will
slide into our DMs.
slide in to our DMs, and who knows what you never know where we're gonna go. Like I said, we have no sense of direction.
We don't. And we would love to hear from you, all of our followers, because we're
Yes.
so big in the world. If you have any ideas of what you want to hear us talk about, you know what to do.
Yes. And you know what? This is like, honestly, we're really enjoying this. We just love our conversations, and we felt like this would be a great place to do it. Oh, I do not like that. Okay, whatever, Rayna. Oh, wait. I'm going back to. Okay, so we. You look a bit like Uncle Jay. Okay. Coffee talk conversation with a couple of pretty amazing. Oh, thank you. We loved having you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm out.